broken Kanu's way, and Dahui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?
Hello Arsenal fans and welcome back to a new episode of Can You Believe It, an Arsenal podcast. And I'm here talking to you after a really good performance against Sheffield United on the weekend away from home, a 3-0 away win. And after the recent form that we've been in, it was very difficult to even be excited about a win or a potential win this weekend. But we got the job done, that's all we could hope for, and it was a really good performance. There's a bit to talk about. Yes, it was a routine win against a team who are basically going down. They're basically a championship side. So when I talk about how good the performance was, that's the massive caveat that I have to bring up, is that Sheffield United are not very good, and we know that. So when I'm talking about it, and when I'm talking about how good some players played, that is something that we have to remember, is that they are not a very good side. And I don't know how much you can take from this performance, but I can only talk about what Arsenal have produced against the opponent that they've been given. And to be honest, they produced a really good performance this weekend. So there's a bit to talk about, but let's start how we always do, with the team lineup. So Bernd Leno started in goal. Callum Chambers returned at right back, with Rob Holding and Pablo Mari, who came in at centre back. And the big change, which we didn't know at the time, was that Granit Xhaka was at left back. Now, when the team lineup came up an hour before, it looked like Bukayo Saka was playing left back. But I think a lot of people, myself included, didn't really consider Granit Xhaka as an option at left back. I think it would have been there would have had to be a lot of injuries, I thought, before Granit Xhaka was considered an option at left back. But Arteta started him here and thought he was quite good. So credit the manager for that. The midfield then was Partey and Ceballos. And the front four was Nicolas Pepe on the right, Bukayo Saka at number 10, Gabriel Martinelli on the left, and Alexandre Lacazette up front. So firstly, Aubameyang was out with an illness. I'll get more into that later, but apparently it's the flu. Emile Smith-Rowe and Odegaard had fitness tests and were potentially going to be involved, but they weren't, which is fine, because ultimately if they're involved on Thursday, then that's the more important game anyway. But I think me and a lot of fans worried about creativity because you don't have a classic number 10 starting here. Bukayo Saka at number 10 is a very different option, one we haven't seen, one that people have actually gone on about as an option. Now, I always thought Bukayo Saka was pretty much well suited to being on the wing. I know he's played centre mid a couple times, but most of the time he's suited on the wing. But in this game, he was at number 10, and I thought he performed really well. I think he had good relationships with everyone that was around him. He had a good relationship with Thomas Partey. He had a good relationship with Nicolas Pepe. He had a good relationship with Martinelli, which is an established relationship from when Arteta came in and Saka was at left back and Martinelli was at left wing. But I think that's what's important about a number 10, or someone who's playing in the 10 space, is that they have a good relationship with everyone around them. Otherwise, a lot of the team can get disconnected. It is really the player who links the midfield to the attack. That's an important role, and obviously when we went through the horrid run at the start of the season, there was no one in that space. I know Lacazette was dropping deep, but you can drop deep and try and link the attack in the midfield, but when there's no one creating the chances, there's no real point into it. You're just allowing defences to get higher and higher, or even drop back. So when Lacazette drops back to get the ball, there's no point because there's no space to exploit in behind. But Saka had a good relationship here, and he was linking up with players well. There was a chance with him and Martinelli in the first few minutes, where Martinelli plays him in and he shoots the ball over the bar, which was fine. Obviously, you want your players to shoot, and I think that's what we needed to do. We only had 14 shots in this game, so not an incredible shooting performance like 20 or 25. But the shots that we had were very high quality, and it always looked like we were dominant. We started well, the performance was good. Sheffield United didn't really threaten us. I think they had one chance with David McGoldrick, who put the ball down, got played through, I think, through Ben Osborne, and he shot wide. He was onside, but it wasn't really a good effort from McGoldrick. But after that chance, we get our first goal, and it's a real goal of beauty. Now, Danny Ceballos is heavily involved in this goal, as well as the other players who link up. Now, Ceballos had a really good game on the weekend, and it's disappointing for me because he hasn't been good this season. I was one of the people that wanted him back on loan from Real Madrid last summer because I thought he was just a very good player for us, and I thought he could be better, and I thought stats showed that. But I think the eye test this season shows that he hasn't really been that good. But in this game, he was good, and he was in a very weird hybrid role because Granit Xhaka at left back still played that left centre back role that you are so used to. But Ceballos was basically on the left touchline pretty much the whole game apart from this goal. So it was a very interesting thing to see and a very interesting thing to talk about because I think when he joined, and it was made on a different podcast, much better than this one, Danny Ceballos had a left-hand bias and he was very good in the left-hand space. And obviously with Granit Xhaka, you can't really take that role. So it was interesting to see him in that left-hand space, and I thought he done really well. But the first goal, so Pepe passes it inside to Thomas Partey. Now, we win the ball back high up the pitch. We don't allow Sheffield United to escape. We win the ball high up. So Pepe passes it to Partey. Partey then passes it to Lacazette, who first times it into Saka, who first times it into Ceballos, flick behind him, and then the finish from Lacazette. It was a lovely goal, a goal that Arsenal haven't scored very often recently, but is one that can be scored often as well. Now, I'm going to be honest, on Thursday I thought some of our build-up play was actually quite good, and I think it was the final ball that really let us down. And here, the build-up play is still very good, but Arsenal actually finished the chance, and Lacazette actually manages to finish the chance, which is very good. Now, that's what you want from your players, is that you want Arsenal players to have this one-touch flowing move. And I think over the years, I think that's kind of gone away, is that Arsenal players don't have that one-touch passing that we were so used to under Arsene Wenger. Now, obviously, he's an incredible coach in terms of attacking football, in terms of teaching players how to express themselves. And obviously, Arteta is still very young, but this is very good, and it was very encouraging to see. The relationships on the pitch were good. As you can see, Partey passes it to Lacazette. Lacazette first times it, he knows what to do to Saka, and Saka knows what to do to Ceballos. Ceballos is aware that Lacazette is going to make the run. He backheels it perfectly, and it's a great finish. It's all lovely movement. It's all chess pieces moving at the exact same time, and it was a really flowing goal. And I think in a season where we haven't scored many great goals, I think this one stood out as a really good goal. So 1-0 up at half-time, and it was what we deserved. And obviously, with what's happened recently, you are worried that Arsenal are going to basically mess it up like we usually do. And honestly, I was worried about the game and about the performance. I really didn't want to be talking about another Arsenal mess-up. But luckily, we came out into the second half. Sheffield United came out, and they came out quite well, to give them credit. We started to take control of the game again, and it was a very, in terms of ball possession, it was very close in the second half. It was 50-50 all half, but I think they really didn't have a go at us at all, and that's just because I think they are just not a good side. Their talent level is very low, and I know Chris Wilder done very well with them last year, but we were just very dominant. Now, before I talk about the second goal and who gets it, I obviously want to talk about the performance of Gabriel Martinelli. Technically, I think he looks a bit rusty still, but I think Martinelli, he's just someone who brings drive and is someone who is always moving, who has always got attacking intent in him. and he's always working very hard and very well to get into attacking positions. I mean, he had 4 shots in this game, and when you think about some of the alternatives, like Willian or even Saka sometimes, these players don't have as many shots as Martinelli. Martinelli's a forward at the end of the day. And I've understood why Martinelli hasn't got as much minutes as, say, some of the other casts, because I think him and Aubameyang are awfully similar, and I think when you have a lot of low-touch forwards in your lineup, it is a bit of a struggle unless you have real good creativity. And obviously, for large stretches of this season, we didn't. I'm someone who believes that Gabriel Martinelli should be starting more, and on Thursday he has to start because his performance deserves it. He was fantastic on the day, and he gets his goal, and it comes from Pepe, who, again, Pepe I thought had a decent game. I think he got more into it. I think people expect Pepe to be this really good passing, dribbling forward, and I think he will get a lot of touches wrong. His passes sometimes are maybe not the best, but I think with a talent like Pepe, he's just got the X factor that I think you have to take the rough with the smooth, because when he gives you end product and when he makes things happen, they produce goals. And obviously in such a low scoring sport like football, that's the most important thing, especially in a team which lacks goal scorers like we do. So I think Pepe had a decent performance, but he was involved in this goal. He shoots and Ramsdale parries it out and Martinelli gets a tap in. So it's a pretty simple goal, all things considered, but it was just lovely to see Martinelli get a goal, and I'm really happy for him. Around the time that Martinelli scored, though, Bukayo Saka had to go off with an injury, which was obviously concerning. It looks like a thigh injury. Some people saying it's dead leg, and some people saying it could be a thigh injury, so he could be out for Thursday, which would be a massive blow, because if we're missing Smith Rowe and Martin Odegaard, then that's basically all our creativity gone. So it will be tough, and hopefully he's available. Hopefully he can just get through this one game and then he gets a rest potentially. But it was disappointing to see him go off, and then Willian came on to replace him, which obviously is never really good. But let's talk about the third goal, and let's talk specifically about Thomas Partey. Now, I mentioned earlier on in the podcast that Dani Ceballos and Granit Xhaka were basically on the left, which meant that Partey was basically a one-man midfield. And I think in the West Ham game, we talked about it where Emil Smith-Rowe and Martin Odegaard were playing as sort of dual eights, and Partey was basically a centre mid on his own. And here again, he was a centre mid on his own, and it wasn't just for a bit of the game. It was basically the whole game he was a centre mid on. And he done fantastic. And the assist for the third goal is absolutely fantastic. I watched it again this morning, and the way he turns his shoulder, drops the shoulder against Ben Osborne, and the first time pass to Alexandre Lacazette, it's absolutely fantastic. The pass is so good that Lacazette only needs one touch, and it's to finish. And he's done great through ball. I think he has been a bit poor recently because I don't think he's 100% fit, but I also think he's maybe potentially trying a bit too hard to impress. And when you are trying a bit too hard, I think you can make mistakes. Especially, I know I'm no level to talk about football, but when I used to play football back in the day and I was really trying hard to impress, you make silly mistakes. Whereas when you take a deep breath and you take just the thought that I'm just going to go play my game, get into a zone. Obviously, these are professionals. These know, but it just sensed to me that he was trying a bit too hard. And in this game, he was much better, and he was really, really good and really flowing. And obviously, when he's on it, he's really on it. So this assist was lovely, and it was lovely to see him get that assist. And it was lovely to see Lacazette get a brace. It was his 50th goal in the Premier League, which is good. He should have got there quicker. He even acknowledged that himself. But I'm just happy that he's done well. Now, obviously, not to sound too cynical, but I would still sell him, especially with the news that Balogun's staying now, which is great news. That's obviously a contract that's been sorted, and credit Arteta and Edu for getting that sorted when it looked like he was going to leave. But Lacazette, he's been a good servant for us. I mean, he hasn't really been worth the money we pay for us, but I think he's been a good player for us and at times, and if he leaves in the summer, he leaves with most Arsenal fans giving him well wishes. So that's all you can really ask for. But he's a good player, and it was good to see him get over the miss on Thursday with 2 good goals. That's how the game ended. Final score 3-0 to the Arsenal. We performed well. We're up to 9th now, which is fantastic. And after results this weekend, Everton are only 3 points ahead of us. We've still got to play Everton. Now, obviously, we're joint on points with Leeds. We're only above them on goal difference. So, and obviously Villa are below us with a game in hand as well. I think Villa and Everton are the game that they've got to play together, are the games in hand. So it is a tricky one. It is one that we still don't know what's happening. Obviously, Spurs lost this weekend, which was great. So we're only 4 points behind them. We just got to keep doing what we're doing. Wherever we finish is where we will, and hopefully we get a good position in the league, because the higher we get, more money we get. And I know it's only basically change, but the priority is still the Europa League, because that gets us the entry back into the Champions League, and it also gets us a trophy, a European trophy. So that's got to be the priority. But it was a good day, a professional performance, and we have a lot of these games where we face the bottom 6 between now and the end of the season. I think our next game is Fulham at home. So these are games that we are going to have to test ourselves and going to have to produce professional performances. Fulham are no slouch. They've been in good form recently. So we need to... Actually, I say that Fulham have lost their last 4. So we need to be going into these games with some confidence and trying to get some wins as much as we can. And hopefully we can do that. But obviously the priority is Thursday. Hopefully Odegaard, Smith Rowe, Saka are all fit and all fine to come back. Aubameyang, I haven't even talked about him. Hopefully he's fit and he will come back into the team. Right, so I've got some listener questions here. So thank you again for asking me all these questions. Again, you can ask me on Twitter. I usually post a tweet after the game at AFCMet. Please ask me any questions that you got for me. So we'll start with the obvious elephant in the room sort of thing with Aubameyang, and from regular contributor at Titanori, and they ask, is Orba another Ozil situation for you? And obviously this comes after Aubameyang missed the game with flu, and a lot of people rightly said that obviously with the times that we are in, that flus are very serious because of COVID and such, and there haven't been any detective flus this year actually, in the England. So it was something that was a bit curious. A lot of people were a bit curious with it. For me, I didn't really have an issue because Xhaka was ill last week and no one batted an eyelid. And I think when Xhaka was ill last week, then it could easily get passed on. So I'm not surprised Aubameyang was ill and was out. Now, obviously, if this becomes a regular occurrence, then maybe we can question it. But, I mean, this is the first time he's been ill. And I know that since the Spurs game where he got disciplined, that it has been a bit frosty between the two. And if he does have an issue with Aubameyang, then that's a major problem for us. But at this present moment in time, I don't think he does. And I just think that it's just one that's going to have to play out. Aubameyang's in pretty poor form, but before the Tottenham game, I think he had 7 in 7 goals. I know most of them came in one game because he scored a hat-trick, but honestly, he was in good form, he was playing up front, and we were getting a decent service from him. And that's the important thing. He signed this contract. There's no way that we're going to be able to sell him. So use him. it's not like Willian where he's been very bad and he hasn't produced anything this season. I know Willian has 7 assists, but I mean, what amount of those assists were actually decent? They were pretty simple assists where the player basically finished it on their own. I think the only assist that was pretty good was the Aubameyang assist against Villa, I think, or Burnley. And even then, Aubameyang does most of the work. So I don't think it is another Ozil situation. Not yet, anyway. Once he starts getting left out the squad, left out the team on a regular basis, then yes, we can have another conversation. But I still think it's very too early for this conversation, and we just have to see how it plays out, because some players will miss games, and I know Aubameyang has an incredible injury record, but some players will just miss games. It is what's going to happen. So let's just not worry about it yet. Let's just see how it plays out. But thanks for your question. So another regular contributor at Odegaard is Magic or Jack, and they ask, why can't we do this every week? Well, I mean, the opposition helped, I think, because the performance was very good, but the opposition obviously helped when the quality is that much superior. Quality always trumps through, and I think a lot of the time our teams are quite unbalanced, and I think it does make us struggle a lot. The reason why we can't do this every week is because there are a lot of teams that are better than us, and we have to produce different approaches. Even teams that you would say are worse than us sometimes can hurt you in much different ways than a team like Sheffield United, who basically have been down in the dumps all season. So you would like, obviously, and we would be a much better team if we could produce this performance every week, but it's just something that Arsenal can't produce. And I think Kevin De Bruyne said something about Man City, is that 80% of the season you're not producing your best and you are just finding ways to win. And I think Manchester City are a good example where they will grind out a lot of wins even if they haven't been playing well. And that's the difference between a lot of these teams, is that you just ground them out. And sometimes we can have these performances like we did against West Brom, like we did against Sheffield United. These performances that we can produce, and obviously you would like it more consistently, but the reason why we're mid-table is because we can't produce these performances on a regular basis, and that's why we need to think about where we're going and keep producing performances like this, and also keep getting players that can get us goals even when we're not performing well. So that's the most important thing, really. But thanks for your question, Jack. I've got 2 questions that are the same, and one's from @WaynesWorld20_, and he asks, same 11 Thursday, and one from Gargantuan FC, and he asks, hey Met, hope you're doing well. I am very well, thank you. Would love to know your thoughts on our flexible lineup, and would like to hear your lineup for Thursday as well. So basically, it's the same question. Obviously, the performance on Sunday was very good, but do I think that we should be starting the exact same team on Thursday? Probably not. I think there are some pieces that I would change. For example, I'd probably play one of Cedric or Bellerin at right back instead of Chambers. I know he had a decent game, but I mean, he wasn't really troubled. I'd start Gabriel at centre back. I know Mari and Holding are 2 centre backs that have produced a decent amount of clean sheets this season. I think all 9 of our clean sheets in the league this season have been with Rob Holding at centre back. So there is some consistency in terms of that. The midfield and left back is a bit of an intriguing one, because before the game I was very encouraged and I really wanted to see Saka at left back because I thought he could still threaten. But Granit Xhaka played at left back, but he played a very different left back role. Now, if we are fine with Xhaka playing that left back role again, then I'm totally okay with him playing left back. But against a player who's maybe got a bit more pace, who's going to have a bit more trickery, I think Granit Xhaka may struggle at left back. So it's either him, Cedric or Saka, and depending on if Emile Smith-Rowe or Martinelli or Odegaard are available, on Thursday, then Saka can play left back, but if they're not, then he has to play in the forward line because we're just not going to be threatening otherwise. I would try and get a left foot or a left back. So if Saka has to play in the forward line, then Xhaka at left back, and then you start Partey and Ceballos like you did. Hopefully Ceballos has got some decent form now and he can go into the game on Thursday with some confidence, and because he played really well against Sheffield United, like I said, he was doing the flicks that you know he can do on occasion, and he can produce these performances sometimes, but he just doesn't do them enough. And then the front four, I'd still be tempted to play Aubameyang if he's fit, if he's fine, instead of Lacazette. I know Lacazette had a really good game, but I would still look to play Aubameyang up front. Pepe and Martinelli were a good forward line. It's a threatening forward line. But it's just that number 10 role, because I would like to see Smith Rowe play. I would like to see Odegaard play. But obviously Pepe produced a really good performance. I thought he did very well when he came off the bench against Slavia. So I would start him. And then obviously Saka as well. So there may not be a space for Martinelli, and that's a shame because I thought he played very well. It just shows the depth of our options in forward line that we are even having this conversation. But I think my forward line would be Pepe on the right, Martinelli on the left, Odegaard at 10, and Aubameyang up front. That's how I would go. I'm not 100% sure how much balance, but you've basically got 3 forwards. We need to score on Thursday. Play your 3 most direct players and have a creator behind them. And obviously, if you have Ceballos and Partey, they're going to be supplying the ball as well. So I would be encouraged by playing that forward line. It would be exciting as well. A lot of people would like it. I mean, I don't think we've played Pepe, Martinelli and Aubameyang with a number 10 as a front 4 since that West Ham win last year with Freddie Ljungberg. So it would be an interesting thing. I'd like to see it. So that's how I would go on Thursday. But thanks for your questions, guys. And the last question is from @Dukester94. And he asks, ESR or Martinelli from the left? And this is a difficult question because Martinelli produced such a good performance. But I've liked ESR on the left. And I think Smith Rowe has been fantastic when he's come in. So it is a bit of a difficult one. I think on Thursday, because we need goals, like I said before, I think Martinelli should start because, like I said, we need goals. We need goal threat up front. So, yes, I know Smith Rowe will be able to link up the midfield in the attack. He's very good at that. He's very good at running past defenders as well. He's got very good bursts and very good dribbling speed. I think for the time being for Thursday, it will be Martinelli. And then I would think about, okay, maybe Smith Rowe can come back in on the left. Because remember, him and Odegaard playing on the pitch at the same time was producing some really good performances. I think you do need 2 creators sometimes. I think Thursday's the only exception because I think we need to get goals. But most of the time you need 2 creative players, 2 out of Saka, Odegaard and Emil Smith Rowe. And I think these players have good relationships with everyone on the pitch, and that's what you want. But on Thursday, I'll play Martinelli off the left. He's deserved it. He's earned it. He's waited for his chance. And I think he's been very good whenever he's played. So maybe Smith Rowe off the bench. And then we can really push them back afterwards. But I think we get goals quickly, then it could be really good. But thanks for your question. Again, thanks for all your questions. You can ask them to me at AFC Met on Twitter. And that's the end. And obviously Thursday's the big one. Now, I predicted us to go out because I was feeling a bit down after the Thursday game, but also because Slavia have an incredible home record. But I hope I'm wrong in this instance because obviously, if you know me, you know how desperate I am for a European trophy. Hopefully I'm speaking to you after a really good performance on Thursday. But until then, come on you guys.
Well, it's broken Kanu's way and Hui's right out of the centre. It's Kanu, what's he going to do? Oh! Can you believe it?